Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm back with another video, this time with D.Dan style. So for this track I've been using as a reference his latest EP that I made that's called Sequence 01. If you want to get the project file, you can get it in the description of the video. Thank you so much for the support. Here we go guys. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the kick, and for this kick I've been using as a reference the track Shred. So in that track there's a kind of rolling pattern kick, and this is what I got inspired by. So I'm gonna show you the group kick that I made. The final kick that I made is this one. So to do that, I'm kind of using the same framework that I use usually with my group. So I have lots of distortion and some processing that I'm going to show you after. But first, we're going to start off with the main kick. So I've been using a sample from Vengeance. This is very clean punch like this one. And for this style, what I want is something really in low and the mids. So I'm going to first withdraw that top to get something very clean, a clean punch, like almost a 909. This one is actually a cut that I made after because I had some distortion that's gonna come from the group processing. But basically here, this is a clean punch that I want. And then adding back a top kick that was more suiting the style. So this is actually just a top in the mid, like this, a bit of transient and a slight reverb. I usually use this preset for this style, which is very nice. And I really want my transient to be in the center. So that's why I'm using this utility in mono. So then I have my rumble. So at first, what I wanted to do with this kick, it's something with a offbeat with some toms, but eventually I made something different, but still I use it because these toms were actually creating some groove in the mid-range and I kind of kept it. So first I using as a rumble this sample from Ableton, which is usually very effective for this style. So I'm just cutting here that frequency because it's gonna be a bit too much, especially after with the distortion, and I want something really dark. So that's why I'm putting this cut. I'm then creating a triplet with that rolling pattern with some 909s. Again, just a sample from Ableton. And here I really distort to make it more compressed. I withdraw those resonating frequencies. So especially here, these are the frequencies that's going to resonate with the distortion. And this resonancy is usually some boxiness. So that's why I cut it. So this gives me something pretty clean like this. I sidechain, of course. And then I'm adding those toms. So I first have mid tom, which is like this. So I have a slight velocity pattern here, creating some movement. I'm going to withdraw again that resonancy. I'm going to sidechain. And here again, making it a bit more dark. I have another pattern, this one with more like mid, high mid tom. And this one is going to have a different movement, different velocity. So I created this ramp, this velocity ramp. Again, withdrawing the frequencies that I don't want. Sidechaining. And here, make it very clean. I also add already lots of frequencies here. I don't want also some phasing issue, so that's why I cut like this. So altogether, this gives me this offbeat. So altogether, it could actually work if I put back the distortion. But here I prefer to actually get something more dark, so that's why I EQ like this. So here I'm just gonna beef up a bit my rumble with some distortion. So what I do is I create some parallel processing. I have my dry signal here, and I'm just gonna cut here with a high pass. I'm gonna add lots of distortion with that camel crusher, pretty heavy, and then I'm just gonna EQ to get something clean. Again, I don't want the industrial feeling, so that's why I cut like this. So this really gonna beef up a bit that rumble and give me some additional frequencies here and power in that range. So altogether, this is the kick. Pretty clean. I have all the frequencies I need. Now I just need to compress it and distort. So I'm gonna use different distortion units to actually do that. So I have first this overdrive that I usually use for those groove kicks on the whole group. So this is the first distortion unit. I'm then adding a bit of dynamic tube, bit of erosion. So this erosion is gonna bring the noise on top of the kick. And I added that because usually in the track of D.Dan, you have that kind of noise on the kick to create a room, a kind of old school feeling, or almost like vinyl. So that's why I'm adding this. You can also use the vinyl plugin from Ableton, which also works. So here I have the decapitator. And this one really brings a kind of analog vibe. And you can see that it's 100% wet, but I don't have any drive. So it's ready to give the color that I use this. I have a slight trash here, but it's like 3% of click control. I have this inflator. Again, all of these are really slight wet just to give some color and a bit of character to the whole thing. And then I'm adding lots of compression, so I'm using the OGT to do that. And it's really gonna bring life to the whole thing. And then I'm just balancing the frequencies back and forth between here, these parameters, the different compression, depth, downwards, etc. And this EQ just to balance the tonal balance. And so you really see that this erosion is really bringing that noise. And finally, just a bit of clipping. What I do also usually is on top of that group where everything's pretty heavily compressed, I want to add back a bit of punch and a bit of dynamic. So that's why I put usually some top kicks on top of that. But those top kicks are not compressed. So it's really to bring back a bit of punch and dynamic. So here it's really some transient, something like that. And it's gonna add those transients on top of this. So then I'm gonna record this, the whole thing. So this is my kick here that I record. I then put this through an EQ. So really to make it more clean, especially here, you usually have some resonances and you can cut here and boost a bit back the sub to make the thing more clean. And then I'm just gonna add some other textures to actually give the feeling that it's doing to its tracks also. So here I just found this sample that add like this noise on top of the kick. So I kind of took this noise. I'm also adding a little hat with a slight reverb, plate or bright reverb, that's gonna bring a little bit of something. A transient, and I think it does that in this track, Shred. And finally, I'm really bringing some groove with that perk. So this really gives the kick to be more lively, almost like having an infinite loop. And I think it does that in this track also, maybe with some toms. But basically what I did is I took this sequencer, Roser, which is a Max for Live device. And I randomized the velocity here. I tried different patterns, and when I liked this one, I kept it. So basically it's just some perk, and I really control here to take only the transient to have something dynamic. And then I also try different transpose down. You can try and find something that you like. Slight distortion for the character. Of course, here I don't want those frequencies. So just to clean it up, put it in mono, and then just sidechaining. And that's pretty much it for this kick, guys. I just have a final mono for the bass, some balance for the whole thing, the overall frequencies. And that's it for this kick. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you the other elements. So I have some drums, I have 3 channels for some leads, and that's pretty much it. So the style is very minimalistic, and especially there's nothing like random that's playing around with in the background. Usually there's sometimes a few synths or drone or pad that could be in the background, but there's no like effect or random elements. And pretty much in terms of arrangement, the thing is very steady. So you see, for instance, this track, like basically there's no break. There's actually no break, and there's just each 16 or 32 bars a drum that pops, a drums that's gonna be withdrawn. Sometimes he add it back. So really it's something very steady, but still there's some polyrhythms, there's some groove underneath that keeps you entertained. And almost like this track I almost made like to be some tools to be mixed like for 3 decks or 4 decks mixes. So I took this as a reference, so that's why you have also here something pretty steady. But first I'm gonna show you the drums. So for the drums, I'm gonna have 4 different layers. I first have a shaker, something very noisy. I think I took this idea from another track from this EP, something very noisy. So what I did here is a technique that I already show you in some other tutorials. So I used a shaker that I found, a shaker loop. This shaker is pretty interesting because you have some groove, so lots of different variation in terms of velocity and already lots of movement. I have pitched it down because that was better to my liking. I managed the transients, so to withdraw those transients and to make something very smooth. And then I'm going to create the noise with the vocoder. This is really what makes that noisy sound. You can play around with the invoiced. It's gonna also play with the transient, and you can play also with the dry wet to keep the original sound and to mix it with some noise. If you want full noise, you can take this, but you're gonna lose a bit of that movement from this. It's gonna be something a bit too flat. I then beef it up a bit with the overdrive to bring back a bit some frequencies, especially in the mid-range. I'm gonna add this plate reverb, which is very slight. I'm gonna center it and then EQ. Here really cut out those frequencies. You really have this separation of the elements, especially in groove, in this kind of style. So that's why I cut entirely those mid frequencies, and then I just have this sidechain. So that's the shaker. Then I have some hats. So in every D.Dan track, there's a very straightforward open hat, and usually you have that groovy pattern. So you have one bar when the kick's playing and then one on the offbeat, and this one is very low velocity. It really creates a kind of movement, even if there is some sidechain here on my group. It's going to create something different than just having the offbeat open hat. So here I chose a pretty simple hat, then it's just about bit of distortion to give it character, adding slight plate reverb, and then it's just EQ. Especially here, lots of high frequencies to cut, usually 4K, and sometimes a bit here, depending on the mix of the other elements. That's my open hat. I have then another strong open hat, which is more like characteristic, actually more like an open hat, when the first one is more like a closed hat. So this one is just like an open hat, 909 open hat. And again, I'm pretty much using the same processing, which is actually so already creating some compression or with the fade, making it more short. I also pitch it down. Again, it was more fitting to the track. I then withdraw that very nasty attack. It was too much, especially in the mid-range. Again, giving some character with the overdrive, adding a slight plate reverb, EQing. Again, lots of high frequencies to cut. Again, some compression with that transient shaper. I had still too much transient, and then a last EQ. Yeah, that's it for this open hat. Next, I have hi-hat that also comes at this part of the track, and it's gonna actually create a bit more groove. So I think I took the hi-hat from this track, or maybe another one, but it's in the same style. And again, same kind of technique. So I made that pattern, just withdrawing here that note. Then again, just slight plate reverb, controlling the transient with some compression, EQ, and just a slight groove delay. That's gonna add some ghost notes. This is a preset from Ableton. Then I have a clap, which is very simple. Again, it's just a 909 with that kind of pattern, velocity movement. I have then a variation here, playing every kick, and slight variation at the end of 16 bars, just to keep the thing less loopy, because the rest is pretty steady. So that's why I'm adding those variation. And here again, just some character, managing the compression here with the drum bass, slight plate reverb, and here it's a hole actually to create a contrast, and here some EQ just to withdraw the low mid frequencies, and then side chaining. And finally I have a ride, which is a 909 with that kind of pattern. So I have some velocity movement again. This one is lower in volume than the other one, controlling the transient, actually like a side chain, and then making it something very smooth, very like almost like some noise in the background, and side chaining. So it's pretty much all the same techniques. There's not so much processing, and I think this is because D.Dan is using lots of drum machines. I think I saw that in one of his videos. And so these are pretty straightforward 909 drums. It's just a matter of mixing, trying different patterns that create some groove, playing with the velocity, and fitting the right reverb to make it fit to the track. So that's it for the drums. So next, what I have is different leads. So basically those leads are really about creating some weird sound. And what I'm gonna use to create those sounds is really the same technique that I use every time. It is really using two tools from Ableton, which are super effective. It's grain delay and shifter. So be careful about this chain. It's pretty long. It's because I tweaked around and I went back and forth. It's really not a good example, but what you must understand and get from this tutorial is really how to create those kind of sound. Basically, what I use is a plug. I took a plug from Serum, one of the presets from Serum that you have directly, and you can tweak different and try different plugs. It really doesn't matter, because what's going to create the sound and the texture is really the shifter and the grain delays. So here I have an extensive chain. Basically, it's just creating some character and some harmonics, those two amps. So amp, and overdrive. I have a bit of movement coming from the groove delay here, lots of EQ, maybe some unnecessary ones, but what's going to create the sound to be more weird here is really the shifter. So here it's almost too hypnotic, and you create that dissonant sound here to go off key actually. And then I just tweaked, had some delays, some reverb to create something more lively. Here it's pretty dry. And the pattern is just alternance between a very low velocity note to a very high velocity note, but always in the same note. And I want something very dark, so that's why I auto filter here like this. So in this channel, I really used the shifter to create a dissonant sound. For this one, which is a blip, I actually used a grain delay, and I just recorded, I think it's just a blip, maybe from a random sample, or I think I recorded this from a blip from Serum, from an Ableton preset, which is, I think, a blip, this one, I think, sine blip filter attack. And here I'm just gonna try different grain delays, and it's gonna create instantly some weird sound. So there's of course also some reverb and some delay. It's gonna create some movement, and then it's just about trying. And you can try different blips. For instance, if I take this one, and instantly you can create those kind of leads, just trying to find So here, it's really about finding the right pattern until you get something that grooves with the kick. You create something lively with some delay, with some reverb, and you create something weird thanks to the grain delay. You can actually stack different grain delays, one after the other, until you find the right lead or something that you like the most. And then I'm just gonna be careful about this technique, because usually there's a lots of different delay, different pitch, so it can create some phasing issues and sometimes some mono compatibility issues. So that's why I create also some parallel chain with a mono sound until I get something that's gonna be correct if I put the whole sound in mono. So that's why I would be careful about this, but then it's really just a great technique to create those weird texture. So grain delay and shifter, you can actually use also both together to create something even more weird. So basically here, if I take back my loop, I can create even something even more dissonant. And I can do this. I can also switch my blips to create different things. Also taking some plug sounds from Serum or other presets, and this is really a good way to create those kind of leads. I then finally have a plug here, which is made with the same technique. So it's actually a combination of both technique. So this is just a plug sound here sample. So I'm just withdrawing that nasty transient to have something more smooth. And then I'm just gonna add the same technique. This one, it's a bit more clean. And basically I'm creating in the right order some weird sound with the shifter. So already I have something that's gonna be off key. Then really you can change that sound with the grand delay. You can try different parameters, hide another shifter to create even more weirdness. I then have a filter freak, which is a resonant filtering delay. And then I put the sound through delay and reverb to have something more lively. And then just sidechaining. And that's how you do that. And yeah, here I just put also the sound a bit on the left because of all of those different processing, it was a bit too much on the right. So to center it more. So also one comment that is important for your leads is that basically this loop that you're gonna create is gonna last for the whole track almost in that style. And so what you gotta do is find first some kind of call and answer, call and response between your different leads. And you can also create something more random with some polyrhythm. And that's actually what I did here with the last plug. It's gonna play every other like 1.5 bar. So this ensures that it's gonna change every 8 bar. I have something different. And this is gonna keep the interest in the track, even if the rest is gonna last the whole track. Also with the delays, it also brings a bit of randomness, and these are important to create something that feels less steady and very lively. And that's pretty much it for these leads and for this track, guys. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you liked the video. I see you in the next one. See you guys. Ciao.